Left in Kentucky, the podcast of indivisible Northern Kentucky. Are you ready for some politics?
Oh, yeah. It's not a full contact sport most of the time.
No.
But it can be just as exciting as throwing the pigskin around or whatever they use now.
I think it's more exciting personally. I'm not a huge football fan, but it is Super Bowl Sunday.
It is. And until just a few minutes ago, I only knew that it was. Now I know one team that's in the game. Yeah. I'm halfway there.
I actually know both teams that are in the game.
Well, tell me the other one. Now I'll know.
Not personally, but Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Well, their logo is cool. I usually pick my team by that.
Their logo is cool. Much cooler than the Kansas City Chiefs. Not to mention there's the whole issue with the naming. So.
Right. I'm sure the indigenous folks don't appreciate it too much.
Yeah. So I'm going to, although you see, I'm torn because Tampa Bay has Tom Brady and I really can't stand Tom Brady. So
it's also Florida. So
I was born in Florida. So watch it with that.
You left. I mean, you're not there. You didn't go back. But you know what? My E about Florida is more about the sand and the heat.
Yeah.
Than anything else. I just don't like sand.
Really?
Or oceans.
Oh, well, that's a problem. There's a lot of ocean in Florida. A lot of it.
Yeah. Like the water that you can't see to the bottom of. No.
Yeah.
Count me out.
Too many movies about that.
I think that is what scarred me.
Yeah.
When I was younger. But
well,
we all have our burdens to bear.
That's right.
Just take me to the mountains, please.
There you go. Take me to the mountains where they keep tearing off the tops of them.
Oh, hopefully they won't need to do that anymore.
Yeah. Hopefully we're past that. So anyway.
Be nice. Yes.
How
are you, Roberto?
Speaking of tearing off mountaintops, we are back in for the second part of the short legislative session.
Yeah, and they really hit the ground running, didn't they?
Yeah, they came back Tuesday and immediately got to work overriding the governor's vetoes. Not
shocked by that.
No, not shocked at all. Which the governor immediately took them to court on as being unconstitutional as they try to strip the gubernatorial powers.
Andy's a fighter.
Yeah. Yes, we like that.
He knows the law. He knows he's on the right side of it. So
it's almost as if he used to be attorney general.
I know. It's people's memories are so short. And I will say now that we're over a year into the Beshear administration, that he's so much different than his dad. People want to compare him to his dad all the time. And he's just so much more down to earth, non-politician than his dad was, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I liked his dad. His dad's fine, but yeah,
he just seems more approachable, more personable, more like that.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, when I got to speak to Andy a couple of years ago, he was at I guess this was probably 4 years ago. He was speaking at a dinner that I was at, and I got to speak with him afterwards for a bit, and just really, really nice, really caring. It was at the same time that he had he was pushing to deal with the opioid issue, the opioid crisis, and just gave that genuine sense of caring for the people of Kentucky, and
absolutely.
And that was it was really, really nice. I mean, when you get that feeling from someone genuinely in person,
yes,
and then that person eventually becomes your governor.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Yeah,
I mean, we endorsed him even in the primary because we could tell,
yep,
that his intentions were good.
Yep,
and he didn't always, match us on some of the issues either. But some things are more important. The overall feeling that you get for somebody means a lot, I think.
Yeah. And then on the other side of the goodness, we have
the dark side.
The dark side, the brown side, if you will.
The patty side.
The patty side. Time to flip that patty over.
Oh my gosh. It's so funny because Ian took the tractor out today and just shoveled a whole bunch of that.
Oh, did he?
Oh, yeah.
You got to do that sometimes.
So, yeah, it's very much on my mind today anyway. So,
well, good. Since it's very much on your mind and it's that time of our segment, why don't you give us your cow patty for the day?
So, there's so many ways that I could use this cow patty award, right? But, Massey's already has so many of them. His house is full of them. So I don't even know if he can fit another one on his wall. So, we'll leave him to this. Well, my cow patty this week is the COVIDiots. And, we've heard this term a lot over the last year. But it's basically people that don't use their common sense and latch on to some narrative where their freedom's getting taken away by taking safety precautions, And, is anybody complaining about wearing shoes? No, they're not. It's for safety.
I complain about wearing shoes.
Well, I said anybody.
Oh, okay.
So are you complaining about wearing shoes into a restaurant?
No.
Okay. So you're not an idiot.
Well, I'm not sure that precludes that, but thank you for the vote of confidence.
In that instance, you are not an idiot. But a lot of these people, they want to equate freedom with being able to do whatever they want, and that's just not the way the world works. We have laws, we have regulations,
What?
We do, on all kinds of things. I mean, and for them to pick this one thing to stand up against when my gosh, people, it's killing people. It's serious. It's not a trivial thing. It's not, government making you wear red hats. This is, you need to protect other people from a deadly virus. This is what we're asking you to do. And it's just such a big, we've got people in government spouting lies about it. Massey saying the CDC is wrong, and state legislators talking about freedom, and you've got companies like that Brood company in Lexington. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they formed this. They started this company after the pandemic already had begun. Okay. So, and they did it for the express purpose to fight Andy Beshear's orders, and, to start your business on that pretext, it just seems like way out of line, a little bit crazy. And people have genuinely been hurt by this pandemic. Small businesses have genuinely been hurt. And I feel for those people. I'm one of those people, so I know how that feels. But, we made decisions along the way where we could have been open. We could have had business, even under the restrictions, because of the nature of our business. But we didn't, because we knew that if it just meant one person got sick because they came to our place, we couldn't live with that. That wasn't justified to us. And that was a bigger sacrifice than a lot of people were asking them to make. Just put a piece of cloth over your mouth and nose when you go into a public place. Try to stay home when you can. We've heard it all a million times. Stay 6 feet away. Wash your hands. None of these things we didn't learn in kindergarten, people. So even in Kentucky's educational system. But and people are trying. I see people trying. And then I see pictures on Facebook of people at church and there's not a mask in sight. and they're giving each other hugs, and there's group pictures. And people, we're doing way worse than we were in June when people were actually trying to follow these recommendations, and now they've thrown it all to the wind. And it's at a point where, because of some of the things that our governor has done, it's not as bad as it could be. But it's only going to get worse, never going to get better unless people get on board with really trying to protect each other. And I don't know. It's frustrating.
Yeah,
So,
no, you're right.
that's what I'll say.
I think that's a well-deserved cow patty. Definitely.
So where are you going with your patty?
Well, let's see. So my cow patty this week goes to a different Massey. Mine goes to Representative C. Ed Massey from District 66.
Oh, Ed.
Yeah, so
we know Ed.
Yes, we know Ed. In full disclosure, I did run against Ed Massey twice. But most recently, he's pushed through House Bill 258, which redoes teachers' retirement. And basically what it does is any teachers that are hired after January 1st will be required to contribute more to their retirement benefits. The state's obligation is capped at 10% of the salary, and teachers will have to work 30 years instead of 27 years.
Ugh, it's just a disgrace. And what it's just going to cost us is good teachers.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's going to cost us. It's also going to force new teachers into an undefined benefit program as opposed to a defined pension program.
Yep.
They're projecting that it's going to save $3.5 billion over 30 years. However, it doesn't actually fix the unfunded liability in the Kentucky teachers retirement system.
It's almost like just a slap to the teachers.
Which is $16 billion. So this doesn't do anything to fix the what's already there in the unfunded liability.
Oh, it's such a mess. And the GOP in Kentucky has just been dragging teachers down farther and farther. I mean, they're just seems like such a target for their legislators. And I don't get it. Like, is it just that they want to keep the people dumb, or do they want to make money off the charter schools?
Yeah, and this cow patty actually has a splash zone.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, so getting some of this cow patty on their shoes and pants is the Kentucky Education Association and the Jefferson County Teachers Association.
Yeah.
Which, normally.
Yeah, normally we're on their side.
Yeah. But apparently they helped Massey to draft this bill, but they neither supported it nor opposed it.
What's the end game with that? I mean, do they really want to have less quality teachers? Do they really want to do that to their incoming teachers?
No, they don't want to have less. They don't. They neither support it nor oppose it, even though they helped draft it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hey, KEA, if you draft something, that means you support it. Just a heads up.
Yeah. Or at least take a stand. If you helped to draft it and it isn't what you had helped to draft or didn't do what you were helping to do, then say so. Take a stand.
Speak up.
But something like this, when that is the representation for Kentucky's teachers, and both KEA and JCTA both said they were basically they voted present.
Yeah.
So that's
yeah.
that's my
silence
Patty.
is
Silence
consent.
is consent. Yeah. Uh, it's a problem that needs to be resolved. We need to resolve the unfunded portion of it, the commitment, and that's only going to happen by raising additional revenues. I don't know how much we can say that. And
Yep.
until we do that, we're not going to be able to fix this problem. And it's just going to keep getting kicked on down kicking the can
To
down the
infinity
road.
and
Yeah.
beyond.
Or trying to shift it the burden of solving it onto new teachers, right? By them
Right.
having to pay more, that's where they're trying to generate the money. And that becomes unsustainable.
It does.
So
It's a shame. It really is.
yeah. So anyway, cow patties for this week.
Well
If
deserved.
if anybody's interested in contacting their legislators and let them know how you feel about it, call, write, email,
Ask
let
all your
them
teacher
know.
friends to run for office.
Yes, absolutely. We need
more teachers in the legislature that can really speak to what happens in the classroom.
Yep. So encourage those teachers to run.
Yep.
Joining us this week on Left in Kentucky is our good friend, Mr. Buddy Wheatley, representative from District 65 in Kenton County. Welcome, Buddy.
Thank you, Roberto. It's always a pleasure, and we've done this a few times. Now I'm such a seasoned veteran now with 2 full years underneath my belt, but thank you. And it's a pleasure, and always have enjoyed working with you and talking to you and Amy.
Oh, good.
Yes, we love having you on, Betty. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yes. So we're in the short session this year, the 30-day session. Of course, we had a little bit of a weird start. Instead of just the couple of administrative days, the majority party decided to push through some questionable, shall we say, legislation, to put it politely, in that session.
Yes.
And now we're back from the break. You guys came back Tuesday. So why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about what the mood is since you've been back Tuesday and what's been going on?
Okay, well, not unexpectedly, when we got back Tuesday, there was a big rush to overturn the vetoes of the 6 bills that Governor Andy Beshear vetoed during the interim. And those bills are House Bill 1 and 2 and 1, 3, I'll get them all wrong, 1, 3, 6, and 10, and then Senate Bill 1 and 2. And all of them are priorities of the majority party. They have a very systemic way that they're trying to chip away at the governor's powers. And they want these things to go into effect as soon as possible. It's very discouraging, very disheartening when we know we have Governor Beshear really just acting on behalf of his number one duty and priority is public safety. And, going back almost a year into this pandemic and having the availability of hindsight, not everything was perfect, but we didn't know everything back in March and April. And as the pandemic has gone along, he has been able to adapt and adjust and to rely on science and claiming to be non-political in his fight with this virus. So I support that. I did not support any of the bills that passed in that first week, but as we got to the break here, and we've been back for over a week now. Yes, they did overturn all of those vetoes. However, one of them has been struck down already by the Franklin Circuit Court, which, by the way, they passed a bill to take away the power of the Franklin Circuit Court to hear cases related to the governor. So related to the government. That's another bill that passed, unfortunately, sponsored by Representative Ed Massey here locally. But
Oh, I know him.
I think you might have an idea who that guy is. And the mood on the Democratic side is upbeat in a way, at least as upbeat as it can be, because we have been fighting the good fight. We really have tried to message the things that are really negative about these bills and some better ideas of things that we should be and could be working on, and losing these opportunities to do well for the people of Kentucky during a pandemic, the kinds of things that we would do to promote the vaccine program, to maintain, of course, the precautions we should have to stay healthy during the pandemic, with the wearing the mask and the 6 feet social distancing, and keeping people away from each other as much as possible during this time. And of course, we are really looking to, on the Democratic side, to get assistance to the small businesses that are really hurting so much in this state. And you know, it shouldn't be lost in this discussion that we have a budget to pass, and 30 days is the short session. We don't typically have a budget to pass during the 30-day session, but we do this time because we only passed a 1-year budget in the last session. So it's really busy, and there's a lot going on. And I haven't even talked about impeachment.
Yeah, so since you mentioned impeachment, let's take a little side trip onto that discussion. So the impeachment committee, I guess they dismissed 2 of the impeachment petitions, but I guess what was the first impeachment petition, they're still researching, and they're asking for information from the governor's office. You know, this idea that a couple of people can institute an impeachment hearing basically by a committee against an elected official, for any legislature could be very, very time consuming and very expensive. But when you talk about having a part-time legislature like we have, with only a limited number of days to work, that could become, it could really bring the whole system to a grinding halt.
You are really getting into some of the areas that is difficult when we deal with impeachment. And I have to be careful because I am a member of the impeachment committee. I'm the alternate, but however, I'm basically a full member. I won't be voting. But I can't talk about it enough to say that to have impeachments that come before the House during the 30-day sessions like this, it has really put a time constraint on everything, and on a lot of things that I'm trying to get done. That is by no means diminishing the extremely important work that we're doing. And the work of the committee has been thorough. I support that. I support a fair process, and we are establishing some hopefully long-term process that we're doing things. So it's important to do it the right way. We're just perhaps not dealing with the right topics in my mind, but that's probably as far as I can go there.
That's fair. We appreciate that. So let's talk about some of the important bills that you are trying to get action, or at least get hearings on this session. I know, being in the minority party, sometimes it's hard for bills that are submitted to even get a hearing. But why don't you talk about a few that are maybe near and dear to your heart, or of particular interest to our listeners?
Sure, thank you, and I'd love to do that. If I start with redistricting, I have a bill called the Fair Maps Bill. The Kentucky League of Women Voters has been very helpful in promoting this idea of fair maps. It's actually a process where We have people other than the state legislature doing the work of redrawing the districts. Every 10 years we do that. We redraw all of the districts. Hi, kitty cat. As you might be aware, that this has been done by the House and the Senate for their own districts. And this process would create an advisory council that would propose the district maps for all the 100 seats in the Kentucky House of Representatives, the 38 seats in the Senate, and the 6 congressional districts for Congress. And this would be a fair system. And this is a system promoted by the League of Women Voters nationally. It is, some of the basic concepts of fair maps are compact districts that don't cross boundaries. They don't cross county boundaries if they can help it. They don't cross natural boundaries if they can help it, like rivers and mountains or mountain ranges, things like that. And it is a bipartisan, it's a nonpartisan issue, actually. So if we can get as fair of maps as possible for our redistricting, we can avoid the gerrymandering that unfortunately this democratic style that we have created for creating our districts has been affected for hundreds of years. This is the way that the system has evolved. And we certainly would hope that with a redistricting, a fair council of people that would advise the legislature on how to draw the legislative districts would be basically the fairest way of doing it, and it wouldn't take partisanship into play. Now, there have been a few Republicans on the other side who have expressed some interest in this notion of fair maps. So I'm working pretty hard on that. I am now on the Elections and Amendments Committee, and I've talked to some people. Whether or not we actually get something through this particular session is unlikely. But one of the reasons why the timeliness is not quite so urgent this session, it appears that we're not going to have the official census count until well into the summer. And that whole thing, typically we have it in March of this year, but with the pandemic going on, we've not been able to get the census count, which affects the redistricting. We don't even start the process until we have the official count. And there's a lot of work in between. So this looks like it'd be something that will be good to have for next session, than the 2022 session. And I'm hoping to get some, if not during this particular session, during the interim, some work on this bill. It's redistricting and fair maps. It's House Bill 23 at this time. I became very interested in elections. I've always been interested in elections, but with some of the elections legislation that came about us because of the bipartisan agreement between Secretary Michael Adams and Governor Andy Beshear with early voting, right, more lax absentee voting, and expanded hours. So I have a bill, a very simple bill. Kentucky's Constitution limits our availability for election hours to election day from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. But as you're probably well aware, we all do 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Mm-hmm. And so I have a bill that simply would take the full time frame that the Constitution provides, adds one more hour, and one more hour would really make a difference. It would just keep the polls open 13 hours as opposed to 12 and give a lot more people that opportunity to get their votes in. For me, anything that provides availability and access to the polls is a positive.
Yeah.
I realize there can be additional costs, but this is not very much cost. There's a couple other bills, Roberto, that that aren't necessarily mine, but I help some legislators work on, and that's with expanded voting time and keeping the absentee voting availability to with not as much limitation as we currently have. But we're not seeing much movement on those bills.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
I think that the public is very behind the expanded voting. I think that you really, if you would get people to get involved in that push, I think a lot of people would really be for it.
It does seem like it. I haven't seen any direct polling in Kentucky, but nationwide there has been polling how I guess happy people are with expanded hours, especially expanded hours. As we saw after the election and absentee voting and the not any controversy in most people's minds, but in a few people's minds, that there were some ways to mess with those votes, at least in their own minds. They thought that there were some shenanigans going on, some voter fraud. I don't even like to use that term because I believe it's all conspiracy theory. But expanded voting hours, actually having the availability to go in, place your vote, and then have that vote counted right away, that is very popular. And I think that would be very popular in Kentucky. So at some point, I hope we can get that moving. I also agree absentee voting can be done. It can be done securely. There are many methods that are in place and have been successful all over the country. We had no problems reported in the state of Kentucky. So we'll see if these concepts start to take hold. As we saw, this election didn't go very well for Democrats. So I don't know why there would be very much resistance to these kinds of bills, these kinds of access to polls,
right,
election bills that we're pushing.
Because historically, right, that's been the Republican argument against it, is that, oh, well, that's just going to favor the Democrats. But in places across the country where we've seen expanded voting, whether it's expanded voting hours and days or mail-in voting, we really haven't seen evidence of it favoring one side or the other. It seems to still kind of be...
It just franchises more people.
Yeah.
As I said a few minutes ago, anything that increases access to the polls, the way we get more people to vote, is something I can be in favor of. And I think that the fear, the myths, the whatever the stories are about voter fraud or potential there being dangers of people trying to get away with something related to expanding access to the polls, there's just very little to no evidence. And, of course, anything can happen, but we've taken the safeguards, and we have so many safeguards in place and double checks and people's eyes on these, what's going on, that, at some point you just have to trust what's going on. We have a very trustworthy system. And I think it's time we expand those hours so we have that kind of availability to the people it's most difficult to get to the polls. And whether that's Republican or Democrat, it really doesn't matter. The Republican side is like, the security of the vote. They won't necessarily say it helps Democrats, but they'll say, the security of the vote or to prevent voter fraud is why we see voter ID laws and resistance to expanded voting hours. But we know it adds to a more fertile democracy when we have everybody, as many people as possible participating in the vote.
So normally this time of year, we're in the session, and we would be down there in Frankfurt, talking to legislators, talking to committee members. Obviously, due to COVID and the restrictions at the Capitol, we can't do that. So we've really been encouraging our listeners to call, send those green slips, email, even write physical letters. If you kind of talk about, what's it like when you get those things, and when legislators receive those green slips, does it just go like into this deep, dark pit in the basement of the Capitol building, or what happens?
I'll give you the real skinny on this, Roberto. All of those messages get to the legislators eventually, whether you call it, you fill in the web form, you send letters, you send emails. What draws the attention most of legislators, in my opinion, are emails from constituents. So that's important. So whoever your senator or your state representative is, when you email them, send them your address and put it high up in the email so they see it right away.
They know who I am.
And then they what?
They know who I am.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. And of course, but what I'm saying is that even the green slips or the calls. So if somebody calls and they're in the district, they eventually come to us in paper form, and we can see the address of the person or of the call. So that's important to do is to stick with your legislators. However, you can still, call or email, other legislators around the state. And there is sometimes we get a plethora, and I mean hundreds of emails related to one topic. That's a form that's been sent by, as I said, hundreds of people. And those may not get very much attention, especially if you recognize it's not somebody in the district. So I guess that's a little bit of a hierarchy of the best way to contact for me. And I think for the majority of legislators, it is an email with your address in it. And it's not necessarily a form letter email, but all of those things are acceptable. And I still think, the handwritten letter, it's getting to be pretty unusual, and that there's certainly nothing wrong with that, getting that out to the legislators too.
Yeah. Now, is it, so let's say that there's an issue that you're passionate about or interested in, like the expanded voting. Those things go before committees. Does it help to communicate to those committee members or the committee chair, even if those people aren't your personal representative? Yes.
And the thing you're expressing is you'll hear it both in committee and on the floor. You'll hear legislators say, I've got hundreds of emails that support whatever the issue is. And while it's true that you get that many emails that might support the way that you think your own political philosophy. In other words, I'm going to get I might get more in support of the ban on conversion therapy from the LGBTQ community, and the other side may not. But that's okay. It's important to do the other side because it keeps them, if they're honest, it keeps them from saying, oh, the ones I get are from people who say take away the governor's powers. So anyway, I really appreciate the time I got to spend this Sunday here with you all. I did say I have a commitment. It's a family commitment, but I'd like to get going on it. I want to really thank you for doing this again, Roberto. I'll do it again, even this session, if we still get time, or right after the session.
Oh, that'd be great.
And Amy, thank you.
Excellent.
So,
thank you so
who
much
do you want for today? Who do you want to win? What's your prediction?
It's going to be Kansas City.
Okay.
I do like teams that have won it before, but just because Kansas City won it last year. But I don't have a big favorite out of these two teams. They're both okay. Neither one are the Bengals.
Yeah.
I'm a diehard. That next year, after Joe Burrow gets healthy again.
Hey, we'll cross our fingers.
All right.
You have a good one. Thank you so much for being with us today,
Thanks, buddy. Have fun.
That's going to wrap it up for this week's Left in Kentucky. Hope you all enjoyed this episode. We once again want to thank our good friend, Mr. Buddy Wheatley, for being on our show. We love Buddy, and we'll hold him to his word to come back and
I'm sure he will. He's always seemed to enjoy doing it with us.
Yeah.
We like his perspective on things. He's very even keel and considerate. I like Buddy a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Coming up next week, we have Mr. Ryan Salzman, who will be on. He's again returning to our show. He's been on before. He's a professor of political science at Northern Kentucky University.
Great guest.
Yep, and a good political commentator. He appears on a lot of places, a lot of the local news channels, and
yep.
papers and stuff. So we look forward
Lucky to have
having him on. Definitely.
Yep.
Definitely.
Well, Buccaneers, have a good day.
Definitely, Chiefs. We'll see how that goes. Of course, by the time you hear this, that'll all be over.
Right, and I still won't know who won even when you hear this.
In the meantime, remember to stay safe out there. Keep wearing your mask. Keep social distancing. Don't let your guard down, because we're still dealing with this.
We're not out of it,
stuff.
guys.
Definitely
not out of it.
Till then, this is Roberto Henriquez.
Amy Ferguson.
Left in Kentucky, the podcast of indivisible Northern Kentucky.